All right, let's just dive right into this, shall we? Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack something really fascinating, the actual mechanics of achieving absolute peak performance. We all recognize greatness when we see it, right? Whether that's out on a track or inside a state-of-the-art laboratory. But have you ever actually stopped to wonder about the underlying architecture of that success? It's kind of crazy when you think about it. You can have a world-class gymnast retiring as a celebrated veteran at, 22, while a 22-year-old scientist is honestly barely trusted to wash the beakers in the lab. So today, we're going to look at some incredible insights from our source material, comparing these two vastly different arenas, the high-octane world of sports and the meticulous, slow-burn realm of academic research. We're going to break down exactly what it takes to reach the absolute top in both.
Which leads us to a pretty massive question. Why exactly do athletes peak in their 20s, while scientists often don't hit their absolute stride until their 50s? It's a really compelling contrast, isn't it? On the one hand, you've got a gold medal sprinter crossing the finish line in their total physical prime at age 24. And then on the other hand, you've got a Nobel laureate making a world-changing intellectual breakthrough at age 58. Both are at the absolute pinnacle of human achievement, but their timelines, they literally couldn't be more different. In this explainer, we'll see exactly how the very nature of a given field dictates the timeline for success, and how time itself acts as either a really unforgiving boundary or a totally luxurious open canvas. But hey, before we explore all those differences, we need to establish the universal baseline. Section 1, Foundations of Peak Performance. It's actually super fascinating how symmetrical this baseline is, because whether you're sweating on a football field or peering into an electron microscope, the foundation is exactly the same: determined practice plus expert guidance. The source material makes it incredibly clear that these two elements are universal. They are absolutely non-negotiable. You simply cannot reach the peak in any discipline with relentlessly putting in the reps, that's the determined practice part, and you definitely can't do it alone. You need that expert guidance to steer your efforts and fix your blind spots. But, as we're about to see, once you build this shared bedrock, the paths to the top start to radically diverge. Which brings us to our next segment, Section 2, the sports time crunch. Okay, so sports excellence is inherently physical, right? You are quite literally racing a biological ticking clock. Everything in the sports arena moves fast, and that includes the athlete's career lifespan. Because sports rely on physical things, muscle fibers, joint elasticity, explosive fast-twitch reactions, athletes face a brutally short amount of time to actually rise to the top. The human body can only endure so much intense physical stress, recover, and adapt before nature just inevitably takes its toll. It's not a marathon, it is a relentless, breathless sprint where literally every single day counts. And the really crucial point here is that athletes typically have a remarkably tight window. We're talking just 5 to 10 years to practice, compete, and actually reach those desired levels of excellence. Just let that sink in for a second. 5 to 10 years. An entire lifetime of ambition, dedication, and grueling physical labor has to be squeezed into a single decade, sometimes even less. Take an Olympic gymnast, for example. They might train intensely for 15 years for a routine that lasts 3 minutes, and if they suffer one badly timed sprained ankle at age 19, boom, that window closes permanently, and the chance for peak performance just vanishes. It's an incredibly intense, urgent, and honestly a very fragile environment. But what happens when we leave the physical realm completely? Let's slow things down a bit for Section 3, the long game of research. So, unlike the physical nature of sports, research is fundamentally knowledge-driven. And because the mind doesn't age out the way a sprinter's knees do, a researcher has a remarkably long time available to rise to the peak of their field. We go from that breathless sprint against a ticking clock to a very methodical, deeply intellectual marathon. In this arena, time transforms from your absolute biggest enemy into your greatest assets. It becomes this luxurious canvas that allows for deep exploration, trial, error, and ultimately profound discovery. And because researchers actually have this luxury of time, their journey becomes intensely learning-oriented. It's not about some immediate explosive physical reaction. Instead, it's driven by sheer tenacity that's gathered over a long, arduous journey of intellectual pursuit. It requires this profound ability to deep dive into incredibly niche subjects or to work across multiple disciplines, slowly synthesizing totally different ideas over years or even decades. So ask yourself for a second, does your own passion or career path look more like a fragile 5-year physical sprint? Or does it require this kind of long-term, multidisciplinary tenacity? Now, when we compare these two worlds side by side, the contrast is pretty stark.
You've got the physical nature of sports pitted directly against the knowledge-driven realm of research. And this fundamental difference dictates a painfully short time window for athletes, while scientists get to enjoy a long, expansive horizon. Ultimately, sports demand compressed physical practice, where every single second is critical. Research, on the other hand, demands long-term tenacity and an endless appetite for learning. So yeah, they share that foundational baseline of practice and guidance, for sure. But the attributes you actually need to survive the journey, they literally couldn't be more different.
Which brings us to the climax of today's explainer. Section 4, does time equal success?
This brings up a really massive hypothesis posed by the source material. Think about it. If a researcher has decades to work with instead of just 5 to 10 years, does that automatically mean a motivated individual has a higher possibility of success in research than they do in sports? I mean, it certainly seems logical on the surface, right? You have more time to practice, more time to read, more time to iterate, and obviously more time to get it right. Well, the answer is yes, but there is a massive catch. The extended time available does technically give a highly motivated researcher a higher possibility of success. However, having more time absolutely does not mean you have a guaranteed, straightforward path to the top. Success in this long game depends on so many variables underlying that journey. It's actually a deeply complex paradox. You have all the time in the world, but time alone is absolutely not enough to guarantee you're going to make it to the peak. The real complexity of this long game reveals itself when we look at those specific variables. Many of these factors are entirely external in nature, meaning they are completely outside of the researcher's direct control. Think about devastating funding cuts to a specific department, or sudden shifts in a university's institutional priorities, or honestly just plain dumb luck. A scientist could literally spend 5 years meticulously gathering data for a breakthrough study, only to be scooped by another lab across the globe just weeks before publication. No way to predict that. Conversely, very few of the variables determining ultimate success are focused solely on the researcher's own internal effort and brilliance. So, while the researcher has the undeniable gift of time, they are totally at the mercy of a chaotic, unmapped landscape of external factors. So, I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder. Is the ticking clock of physical aging in sports actually less daunting than navigating the infinite external variables of academic research? In sports, your window is incredibly short, yes, but the rules are clear and the variables are largely contained within your own physical determination and grit. But in research, you have all the time in the world, but your ultimate success rests heavily in the hands of countless external forces you just can't control. So, which path is truly harder to conquer? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this structured look at success helps you understand your own journey just a little bit better. Keep learning, stay tenacious, and we will see you next time.